Labour is handing illegal immigrants 60 million quid to help them fight to stay in Britain. Labour will increase legal aid fees for asylum cases by a third after small boat crossings surpassed 20,000 for the year. The Ministry of Justice has announced that the fees paid to lawyers to represent migrants fighting to stay in Britain will go up by 30%. So this will cost you, the taxpayer, around £61 million, up from £47 million. Now, they say they need to do this to help clear the 90,000-strong backlog of asylum claims. Anyone want to guess how many of that 90,000 will be deported? The only reason they're in this mess is because they scrapped the Tory policy that nobody who arrived in Britain illegally could ever claim asylum. And today, utter humiliation for the Prime Minister. Do you remember this?
France has now agreed that they will now start to intervene in French waters in order to prevent small boats. That hasn't happened yet, but the previous government spent 6 years trying to persuade them. They have now agreed as a result of the pressure that we've been putting on, the discussions that we have had, and we need that to start.
Yay, OK, so she said that the French were going to stop the boats in the water. Well, then we got the news that Sir Keir Starmer was planning on announcing a one-in, one-out migrant deal with France when President Emmanuel Macron arrives in the UK tomorrow. So, Sir Keir Starmer, they've rolled out the red carpet, you know. Oh, look at that. We've got British and French flags lining the Mall up to Buckingham Palace. The Prime Minister, he's been all over Macron when they met up. Oh, Sir Keir Starmer's let the French plunder British fishing waters for 12 more years and didn't say anything when just a few days later the French impounded a British fishing vessel that they claim was fishing illegally. So this one-in, one-out deal is big, all right? It's the thing that will help Sir Keir Starmer finally do this.
Serious answer is to smash the gangs. We have to take those gangs down, to smash the gangs that are running this vile trade, to smash these gangs.
OK, so we're all set to announce this deal. The next couple of days, Emmanuel Macron's here, we're going to announce it. And then today, EU nations are blocking it. So Italy, Spain, Greece, Malta and Cyprus have expressed, quotes, serious concerns over this migrant deal. So they are going to try to block it. Emmanuel Macron will obviously side with the EU and poof, there goes another attempt by Sir Keir Starmer to stop the invasion of Britain in the Channel. There is a solution, of course, Sir Keir, but one that you appear unwilling to do. Deport, deport, deport. Right, let's get the thoughts of my panel. We have got journalist Carol Malone, another journalist, Benjamin Butterworth, the former chair of the Tory party, Sir J. Berry. Thank you very much. Carol, I'll start with you. So there's two stories rolled into one there. First things first, the one-in, one-out deal with the French appears to be absolutely dead in the water because the EU nations are going to block it.
It was always a stupid idea. What's the point of one-in, one-out? It should be none-in, all-out. I mean, that just makes much more sense. You know, it's just a self-defeating plan. But, you know, this is yet another international humiliation for Keir Starmer. You know, he was banking on the Albanian Prime Minister to take some of our people and process them. He said he didn't. He was talking about. Macron is now about to make a fool of him. You know, Macron is almost in charge of the EU now. He would have known the disquiet about this one-in, one-out plan, but he didn't say anything to Starmer because he wanted to get all his money and take it, kept on taking it. And now it's not going to happen. And as you rightly say, this is just weeks after he's given the fishing rights away to our waters for yet another 12 years. Does Starmer not get it? The EU hates us. They will continue to make a monkey out of us, and he is letting them do it, and he's just let them do it over this. He's got to stop expecting the French to control our immigration policy. He has to do it, and the way to do it is to stop the incentives, stop the benefits, stop the houses, get rid of them when they come, and do not let the EU or anyone else control our immigration policy.
Jake, the centrepiece of this state visit with Emmanuel Macron was going to be, as far as we were aware, the big announcement of a one-in, one-out deal with the French, where we were all supposed to be absolutely cock-a-hoop with. Well, that now essentially can't happen, can it? Because some EU nations are going to decide to block it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things. Of course, as well as the blocking of the one-in, one-out deal, which, look, Carol's right. we should be not in, all out.
Yeah.
But if you got to have something, this is literally better than nothing. But also, you saw the French police officers allegedly slashing the dinghies, which is going to be their new technique. Isn't that really odd that the first camera crew on site happened to be BBC, it also happened to be the one-year anniversary of the Labour government? You'd almost think that the French are doing this to try and make France look good just, the day before the French president visits? Look, ultimately, this Prime Minister needs to accept that the person who is responsible for securing the borders of the United Kingdom is the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. It is not France, it is not Italy, it's not Spain, it's not Portugal. Guess what? They want these people gone and they're delighted to come to Britain. The only people who can do anything about it are the British. So come on, Keir Starmer, stand up for Britain.
Yeah, well, Benjamin, I mean, I do posit to you that he's been mugged off by the Mauritians, he's been mugged off by the Spanish, he's been mugged off by the Americans over the bombing of Iran, and now he's about to be very publicly mugged off by Emmanuel Macron and the European Union.
No, I don't think that makes sense at all. He's been very well respected on the global stage and very successful as well. That's how we've got 3 new trade deals in the last couple of months. But what I'd say on this is that it's, of course, complete nonsense to say that only the British can deport these people because you're deporting them to somewhere.
Home.
And in most of these cases, if you're sending them to the place where they most recently came, it's France. So you can't do that without working with France. This shows just how much this hate everyone, complain about everyone attitude gets us nowhere, because the very point of having good relations with the EU is what will make this returns deal possible.
That is so typical of the liberal elite in London.
We've been working with France for the past decade. They've had the thick end of £1 billion from this country. That's how we've been working with them. And still, as Patrick says, the phrase, they're mugging us off.
But hang on, they have agreed to this scheme. It's other countries that might cause a problem.
Please do not tell me Macron, who was one of the major players in the EU, did not know this is what was going to happen. What they're saying in all these countries, they're saying if the people get sent back to France, the fear is that when they get sent back, they'll get sent back to their home country, where they may be persecuted. The people arriving here, the majority, are not fleeing from countries where they're being persecuted. They're fleeing
none of them are. They're all coming from France.
Poverty. No, but the ones... I just said the worry is that when they get back to France, they'll be sent back to their country of origin.
Yes.
But who cares about that? Because most of them are economic migrants. They're not going to be persecuted. They're just going to be poor. But here they get a free house.
This is an interesting point. So the reason why some of those countries, they are known as quotes unquote frontier countries, so the likes of Italy and Spain, etc., where some migrants can basically access the European Union. So Spain has a couple of enclaves in Morocco, Melilla and Ceuta, where if you manage to just walk into those, then technically you're in the EU, despite never leaving the continent of Africa. Italy, we know, have got certain outposts like Lampedusa, the island there, where they can arrive.
Well, they should get Keir Starmer as their Prime Minister and give them all away.
But just to finish this point, because it's important, the reason why they're kicking off is that they are worried that if we then returned people to France, France could then return them to the first country of entry under the Dublin Agreement, and that's why they're wound up about it. So Emmanuel Macron will have known this when he's led Sir Keir Starmer down the garden path, and he's chosen to say nothing about it. He's not our friend, is he? And Keir Starmer's, well, frankly, been embarrassed about it.
This is just window dressing. It's stage management for Emmanuel Macron's visit to the UK. He doesn't want to come here and be given a bad time because the French, they've been paid hundreds of millions of pounds
over 10 years.
of waving people through to come to the UK. So they basically thought, well, we'll offer this deal. It's collapsed before he's even managed to arrive. We'll pretend we're going to slash the dinghies. I'd be amazed if we ever see that happen again. So basically, so he can have a nice state visit and Keir Starmer can look...
He's been played. Let's let Benjamin, sorry, go on. He's been played, hasn't he?
Well, no, because, I mean, the deal hasn't collapsed. It also hasn't even been announced, so we'll probably find out in the next coming days. And given that Macron is clearly at the centre of the EU, then, you know, with a successful state visit, he may use that power to not listen to countries like Malta or Cyprus, which are obviously very small. I'd also just point out that the Spanish enclave in Morocco has walls and fencing like you wouldn't believe.
Well,
so they make it pretty hard to get in.
You're right. I've been there. I went there a good few years ago. Yes, there are walls around it. Unfortunately, what happened was that there were quite a lot of African warlords that were moving in, and they were able, using, in some cases, by the way, flamethrowers to get through those fences. And now, if you do go to Ceuta, for example, it basically does look like an African country. So
but
that
why
is a problem.
do we have to worry, Patrick, about people being sent to their country of origin when that country is not at war and they're not being persecuted, they're just poor. Why should we have to worry about that? Why should should our taxpayers have to pay to feed and house the tens of thousands that are coming here every month?
Let me stick with you on this, Carol, because the other aspect to that diatribe that I've just given there was £61 million of taxpayers' money supposedly going to help illegal migrants get legal aid to stay in Britain, an increase of about 30%. I don't think that's going to go down that well.
How can this government say it is intent on tackling illegal immigration when that is happening? It's clearly they're not that interested. You can't be giving people money to fight us, our government, our processes, and then say you're intent on curbing illegal immigration. The two don't go together.
But this proposal would cut down heavily on things like that, because the one in, one out is if you've got a link to someone in Britain, so you have a clearly strong claim, then you come, and everyone else has to go back straight away.
Do you
and so
really
that will
believe
cut
they're gonna
down.
chuck people
But hang
out?
on, that
Seriously?
will cut down on legal aid because there won't be the appeals. That will cut down on the hotels.
Tosh.
That will cut down on the casework that we pay for in civil servants. So it's a massively better and more efficient way to do it.
We haven't returned anyone. We returned so few people. 90-odd% of people get granted asylum. So do you really believe they're going to send them back?
Well, the returns are significantly up since the last July when Keir
they're
Starmer
not.
became
For
Prime
China
Minister.
migrants.
They are, and we've had
No,
the
not for
biggest
China
return
migrants.
flights
They're
ever.
not.
Not for China migrants. I'll tell you what
Most of them volunteered to go.
Yeah, and
but I tell you what really sticks, and I know you're going to talk about it later in the show, but I've spoken about this before, is you've also at the same time got the government taking away education or healthcare plans from the most vulnerable children in society. I can tell you, my son has an EHCP.
That's not been announced.
My son has an EHCP, and what you don't get is help with legal expenses when you are fighting to get the support that your child needs. And as a parent who's had to fight, like millions of parents and grandparents who'll be watching this show, the fact that the money that could support my son and my family, or any other families in the similar situation with a child with additional needs, is being given to migrants who shouldn't even be in the country in the first place, is an absolute disgrace.
It is.
I mean, look, the taxpayer being asked to fork out for this, there's a backlog of 90,000, roughly speaking. I mean, I remain resolutely unconvinced about whether or not that's true. I suspect the real number's quite a bit higher. But Benjamin, most of them are going to be allowed to stay. And the only reason Labour are in this mess is because they repealed the Tories' policy that nobody who's entered Britain illegally will ever be allowed to claim asylum. So now we're having to be paid for a decision the Labour government made, which will ultimately result in more illegal immigrants staying in Britain, probably at the taxpayers' expense.
Well, claiming asylum isn't illegal, and so it's not as simple as saying that coming through the channel makes them illegal, because what are the legal routes?
Well, it was. It used to be. Now it's not. Now it's not.
It was made illegal.
But also, actually, lots of the problem with the numbers that are staying where it seems illegitimate is at the court stage rather than the government stage. It's often the Home Office fighting individual judges' rulings, and I think that's where you probably solve it to get those numbers down.
So what, get a load of right-wing judges in?
Well, no. I don't know, but there is
Something I agree with you.
But there is clearly a problem with the judges in these migration cases making
most of them are in the cabinet.
blatantly unreasonable
most of that legal community in the cabinet these days.
One of the big things that would save a lot of time is when we have these pointless age tests where you see these stories about there's like a Sudanese man with a receding hairline and a grey beard who's 6 foot odd, and he is claiming to be a child, right? And then it has to go through the courts. If we were allowed to do dental checks or wrist x-rays or whatever it is that you would normally do, then that would be fine. But of course that appears to be against their human rights.
Just do none of that and chuck them out, because they're clearly not children.
Right.
I mean, why do we have to go through all
do
these
they have a
legal
human
steps?
right to repeatedly perjure themselves in court?
ridiculous.
Well, that's what it is. If they're lying, they're making a mockery of the British judicial system.
Yeah.
It's perjury. It's a criminal offence. They should be locked up.
Well, tomorrow I think it is that Emmanuel Macron sets foot on British soil. He'll be taking down the Mall with the French flag and the British flag, two great flags there, lining the way to Buckingham Palace. We wait with bated breath to see whether or not Sir Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper announced that they've done some migrant deal with him. But from what we can reveal tonight, it appears that that's impossible, so it will not be announced. It will just be, thank you very much, Emmanuel, how many more fish do you want? But there we go. Anyway...